Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm a dating coach, and I'm sharing no-nonsense advice for navigating modern dating with confidence and ease, whether you've been on dozens of dates or you're just getting started. I believe dating can be fun, especially when we avoid situationships, because nobody likes a situationship. Before we get into it, I just want to let you know you can now watch all of my solo episodes and interviews on YouTube. So these episodes are still ad-free for now if you want that experience. Just make sure to subscribe to the channel. You seriously help me out so much when you follow and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. So thank you for doing that. And, I've always wanted to be a creator who posted to YouTube regularly, and I've been online for a long time. But this is the first time I'm actually consistently showing up on YouTube, and I'm loving it. So I'll see you there. You can find my channel in the show notes, in my bio link on Instagram, or just by searching Dating Intentionally YouTube. And if you're watching now on YouTube, hello. Thanks for being here. So I have a whole episode on situationships. It's episode number 4, and I'm excited to revisit this topic, but that episode does more of a deep dive into what situationships are, why they happen, how to get out of them. This episode, we're going to focus on noticing signs that you are headed towards a situationship. But just to recap really quickly what a situationship is, it is an undefined relationship. It usually happens when your dating intentions and their dating intentions don't align, but you keep dating, causing an imbalance and a whole lot of anxiety. Situationships are undefined, usually because one person doesn't want a relationship and the other one does. But since it's still an active connection and they're still spending time together, it can't move forward or progress. To me, a situationship is like a cul-de-sac that you keep circling instead of just turning around and driving away from. It's a dead end that you hope becomes a through road, right? It's like you hope it just becomes something else, but it is what it is. It's a dead end. Situationships can last a few weeks or years. I was in a pretty long situationship in college. I'd say a solid 2 years. I dated a guy my freshman year, and then we broke up in the summer. And then sophomore and junior year, we half-heartedly tried to get back together. We kept sleeping with each other. We just couldn't leave each other alone. And even though he didn't want to date me, I definitely wanted to get back together for real with him. It was a pretty toxic situation, and it didn't end until we graduated and we were not geographically near each other anymore. That's what it took to end that situationship. And that was really my main one. I'm sure I've been in other situationships, but they were probably pretty short and not as memorable or painful as that one. And situationships are often pretty painful. It's this whole promise of what could be that then just vanishes, or you just get hit with the reality really hard that it can't be what you thought it would be. There's just their situationships are really just made of potential. They're also painful because they will lead you to ask the question, why aren't they choosing me? Why aren't they committing to me? When someone is continuing to date you, but they're not willing to commit to you, you start to wonder, what's wrong with me? What can I do to convince them to commit? But in reality, they were never going to commit. And there are so many reasons for that, but they don't have anything to do with you. People come into dating with their own baggage, trust issues, attachment wounds, trauma, and all that. You are not at fault for those things. You just, unfortunately, you have to deal with them, right? If someone's trying to date you, but for whatever reason, they're not able to commit, that happens all the time. And that's why I'm making this podcast, so you can spot it early and bounce. They also end in pretty anticlimactic ways. It's like they start really hot and heavy and full of passion and everything's going great, and then just kind of peter out usually, right? There's just kind of fizzle out, fade away, and you end up feeling super confused. All the feelings were real, but then there's nothing to show for it. And that's why they're so painful. So if you are in a situationship or you are coming out of one, I feel you. Like, the pain is real. So today's episode is going to help you spot signs that you're heading to a situationship. And then we'll talk about what to do when you see those signs. I want you to pay attention if you are the one exhibiting this behavior in your dating life instead of being the one on the receiving end. Because if you are the one doing these things to the people you date, I need you to do yourself and your dating pool a favor and figure your shit out. So at the end of this episode, I'm going to answer some questions I got from Instagram about situationships, and I'm going to share some personal updates about my wedding planning and just other stuff that's been going on in my life because it's been a while since I've done that. First, let's just talk about timing really quick. Okay, this question comes up a lot. It's, when does something go from early dating to a situationship? The answer is when you get into the defining the relationship phase and then you keep dating even if you don't agree or are not on the same page. Or what happens is that you've been dating for months and months and you still haven't had any conversation about what the relationship is or where it's heading. If you're still in the early stages of dating, we can't call that a situationship because even though it's undefined, the point of early dating is to get to know each other to see if you want a relationship. So it's okay if you are not defined from the jump. That's not how it works. What happens is when you get to the point where you've gotten to know each other, where you can make a decision either way, you keep going even though you don't know. And that's why it's so ambiguous and confusing and painful. All right, let's get into the 10 signs you are heading into situationship territory. Number 1, they don't directly tell you what they're looking for, but they keep dating you. This one is a classic. And you might hear this and think, well, that doesn't sound so bad. Why can't we just keep dating? Even if they don't know what they want. The issue is when you know what you want, and if you're listening to this, it's probably a committed relationship, you will feel so much anxiety if you continue to date someone who isn't on the same page because your relationship will lack security and stability. Because you know they're not fully in it, anything you do can immediately just scare them off or drive them away, and that's terrifying. When someone's committed to you, they're ideally going to stay even though you have flaws and conflict with each other. Commitment means signing up for that. Dating you without the commitment means they're happy to let you get attached and then disappear the second things get heavy or you get really close or you start to depend on them. So if you know what you want in a relationship and they aren't sure, I suggest talking to them first and kind of confirm that they don't know what they want. And then you walk away. Or maybe that conversation turns into defining the relationship because they do know what they want, right? So you can talk to them about it first and then decide what to do. Number 2, all of your dates are at their place or your place and you're probably hooking up. If you never go out anywhere, then you're definitely heading into situationship territory. And I get it. Going on dates can be expensive, and it's fine to do some at-home dates. But if they won't enjoy a meal or activity or something outside the home with you and you just started dating them, then you are going to head into situationship land. Also, if you only ever go to their place and they won't come to you, that's another massive, gigantic red flag. At this point, they're just seeing you because it's convenient for them. You are not DoorDash, okay? They need to meet you halfway. They need to come to you too. You deserve so much better. So if someone you're dating only does at-home hangouts with you, I recommend calling it out. Try to arrange a date at a restaurant, do a hike, go to trivia, get coffee, whatever it is, see if they agree to that. And if they don't, let them know that you're not interested in a relationship where you just hang out at home and have sex and watch TV. Unless, of course, that is exactly what you want. Either way, have the conversation. Number 3, you hook up in one of the first few dates. So I have a lot of podcast episodes about this, like going slow and why it's important to slow down the physical intimacy if you are looking for a long-term relationship. But if you hook up in one of the first few dates and they start to fade away, or maybe they're only texting you to hook up, then you know that is going to be a situationship. Does it happen every time? No. There are plenty of instances where people hook up on date 1, 2, 3, and it ends up being a relationship and long-term and all that. But it really depends on what happens after you hook up. So if they are doing that thing where they're really not hanging out with you as much, they're not texting you as much, then in their mind, you're probably just a hookup and you're not like a relationship candidate for them. So don't take the bait if they booty call you or try to meet up just to hook up. Let them know that if they want to meet you for a proper date, you are available. But until then, you're just not interested. Moving right along here to number 4, they're inconsistent, but keep telling you that they really like you. If someone's keeping you on the hook through text, but they never see you and they keep making excuses, and they insist that they like you, that's a clear sign this is a situationship. This is someone who enjoys the affection and attention they get from you through texting, and maybe they'll see you when they feel like it, but they're not here for a relationship. Don't fall for someone just saying nice things to you through text. It is so easy to text someone good morning and good night and compliments and cute emojis and pretty words. Don't fall for it. Pay attention to their actions. Do they actually show up for you in person? If not, I'm sorry, you can't have a relationship with someone who doesn't spend real time with you. And I want to take a second to address long distance because some of you might be listening thinking, well, I'm dating someone long distance, like I can't see them in person. Here's the thing. You got to do FaceTime. You got to do virtual activities so you can see each other's facial expressions. You can talk in real time. You don't have time to edit and make the perfect response or come back with the perfect joke, right? You have to have full focus on each other. That is dating, not texting. So get a FaceTime on the books, do virtual activities like watching a TV show or movie at the same time, or like maybe you both get takeout and like eat together on FaceTime. And then also, really important, make a date to see each other in person by meeting halfway, traveling to each other. Because if there's no time and no money and no way to actually meet in person, that is a relationship that can't be a relationship. Where is it gonna? How will it even happen, right? If there's absolutely no way you can travel to each other, like it's too expensive or you don't have time, that relationship doesn't have legs. So just keep that in mind. You've got to get something on the calendar if you're doing long distance. And if you can't, get real with yourself. And number 5 is similar to number 4. They'll tell you all these things they want to do with you, but never follow through. So that's like, they're going to be like, oh my God, we have to go to this concert. We should get tickets, but they never do it. Or, oh, we need to go get that drink, or we need to go on that trip, but they never plan it. So it's the same thing. All talk, no action. And that is a clear sign you're heading to a situationship, because again, the person who actually makes time for you is the person who wants to commit to you and be in a relationship with you, not the person who just talks about it. So how do you get out of these? Well, you can say, hey, it's clear that we want different things right now and I'm going to move on. And then you stop texting them. Because here's the thing about situationships. Unfortunately, you, as the person who does want more, has to be the one to call them off. It's rare that the other person has the awareness, compassion, and empathy to cut it off themselves, because they're getting what they want out of the deal here. They're getting their needs met, but you're not. So they have no incentive to break it off unless they are really nice. And yes, they could care about you, but like, again, they're going to just keep hanging on if you allow it to keep going. So you've got to be the one to end it. And I know you can do it. I believe in you. Number 6, they say they want to be friends, but then continue to make sexual or romantic comments. So this is an interesting one, because this is going to be a situation where you maybe met in a dating context, like on an app, or they asked you out or whatever, you like had a date. Then you decided that it wasn't going to work out romantically. So they're like, let's be friends. So you like try and be friends. And then they have the audacity to hit on you, make sexual remarks, try and like have sex with you, try and hook up, even though they're quote unquote, they just want to be friends. This is so messy. This one pisses me off. Like, this is full on situationship territory at this point, because it is so confusing, messy, undefined. They said they want one thing, they're doing something else. You need to get out if that's happening. Like, this is not your friend. This is someone who didn't want to date you, doesn't know what they want, but wants to have sex with you and is going to try and do that under the guise of being your friend. Ugh, no, thank you. And look, okay, if you want a fuck buddy or like friends with benefits situation, fine. But you have to be honest with yourself and just know that that situation, if they're doing this to you, is not going to turn into a relationship. It's not going to turn into the commitment you want. Why would you want to date someone who thinks this is okay, right? Like, this is where having standards comes into play. Like, you don't date people who think it's okay to say, hey, let's be friends, and then try and hook up. No, you're so much better than that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see how much this pisses me off. All right, number 7, you're dating for a while, like at least a month or two, and you've never talked about labels or defining the relationship. Another classic one. Everything can be going really well. Maybe you've met some of their friends, or they've met yours. Maybe you've done a weekend trip, or you're starting to hang out and all weekend and do sleepovers, all that stuff. Like, things are progressing. Like, you kind of feel like you're getting into couple mode, but you haven't talked about it and you don't really know in what direction it's progressing. You haven't had conversations about what you ultimately want or how you feel about each other outside the fact that you like hanging out with each other. Romantic relationships need a direction in a way that friendships and other relationships don't, because of the commitment that ultimately comes with romance. Like, you don't typically have the same feelings and thoughts towards commitment with your friends or coworkers or other relationships. But when it comes to romance, we are choosing someone to integrate our lives with, to be intimate with on many levels. So that does require a direction, because it takes time to get to that point, and it requires explicit defining of the relationship. We have to get on the same page about what we want and where we stand with each other. Otherwise, everything's left in the dark and you're going to feel extremely anxious. So, yes, you need direction for your romantic relationships. You need to define where this fits into your life. And it doesn't matter if you're monogamous or not. I think this is super important. And typically, this happens after a few months of getting to know each other and spending time together. Don't make assumptions. Have the conversation. And I have an episode on defining the relationship. It's like how to DTR, which is define the relationship. So go listen to that if you are curious about how to have that conversation. But just know that if you've been dating someone for a few months and you've never talked about it, or like it's kind of vague, that is definitely heading into situationship territory. Number 8, they say they don't want a relationship, but they keep acting like you're a partner. Oh, this is another one that pisses me off. Some people only know how to act like a partner and they will play the role. It's like playing house without actually committing. So they're going to like show up and be there for you. They'll take you on dates and they'll integrate you in their life, but they won't. They're like, I don't want to use labels, or I don't want to put a label on it. We'll see where it goes. It's like, oh, get real with yourself. So I would say that is definitely heading into situationship territory. And what I would do in this situation is to call them out like, hey, you know what? You say that you don't want commitment, and I totally understand where you're coming from, but it's confusing because you are showing up in a way that makes me feel like you are my partner, right? That just be direct, say that, and see where that conversation goes. And in some of these conversations, you can redirect towards a relationship. If that person is game, if they're not ready or if they don't want one, you can't change that. And that's when you have to walk away. Number 9, they talk about their other dates and hookups with you. So if you're seeing someone romantically or you're hooking up with someone or whatever, and they talk about other dates and hookups with you, you are heading into a situationship. People do not do that with someone they're thinking about committing to in monogamous situationships, at least. Like, you are not talking openly about your other dates and hookups if you are dating for a relationship with that person. So keep that in mind. If they're doing that with you, call them out. You're like, are we friends or is this a date? You know, call them out and see what happens. But that is definitely a sign they are not interested in a committed long-term monogamous relationship. And number 10, they want to slow down and decrease communication. So this is another classic one that I think a lot of avoidantly attached people do, or sometimes anxiously attached people do when they're not getting the attention they want. Sometimes things start really hot, heavy, passionate, lots of communication, texting, or maybe you're seeing each other a lot. And then people realize and wake up like, oh, we went too fast. And they start to want to slow down and decrease communication. That is a sign that things are moving towards situationship. Could it be saved at that point? Yes, but I've honestly have never seen that happen. If that's happened to you, please write in. You can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I'd love to hear. But in my experience, once someone wants to slow down communication, that's kind of one of the nails in the coffin. Or in this case, it's a sign of a situationship. Because usually in the progression of early dating into a relationship, things just ramp up, which is another reason why you want to start slow. So there's room for it to ramp up, you know? So just keep that in mind. And I would try to communicate with them, be like, hey, I know you wanted to slow down, but I'm kind of confused about where you want things to go ultimately. Like, I'm happy to slow down, but where do you think this is headed? I'm hoping it heads into a committed relationship. Here's what I think that looks like. Again, be direct, be open. That is how you avoid situationships. So we've gone over the 10 different signs that you are heading into a situationship, and I've kind of mentioned a couple ways to deal with it, but the 4 main ways to deal with getting out of a situationship territory with someone are these. 1, let them fade away if they want to, right? If someone is like breadcrumbing you or they're slow fading you, or you could tell they're just like texting less and less and they're less and less engaged, just let them fade away into the distance. You can, you don't have to like put a real end to it if you don't want to. 2, tell them what you want and have an honest conversation about it, which is mostly what I recommend, is just being really direct, upfront, and honest about what you want and see where they're at. And then you can decide what to do from there. The third one is just walk away and don't look back. It is totally appropriate to skip the conversation if the writing's on the wall and you've seen all the signs. You can just be like, hey, you know what? I'm not really interested in talking anymore. It's been nice getting to know you, but I'm looking for something different. Goodbye. And the last one is, and just in general, keep dating other people, right? In the early dating stage, it's so important to keep talking to other people, entertaining new options and matches, because even if you have 3 great dates with someone, it doesn't mean anything. Like, you need more time to tell what it's going to be. So just keep dating other people. Do not put all your eggs in one basket too soon, because you're going to feel defeated when it doesn't work out. But if you have other people you're talking to and it does fade away, or they start pulling one of these things on you that I mentioned, then the blow is a lot easier to take, you know? So keep dating other people for sure. Things not to do. Don't beg them to try to be with you. If someone is not ready for a relationship, they don't want a relationship with you, you don't have to beg someone to date you. You don't have to beg someone to be in a relationship with you. That's not how it works. Someone is going to choose you. Someone's going to drop everything to be in a relationship with you. So that's not the way to go. You're not here to convince anyone of your worth. If they don't see it, or if they're not ready, they're not in a place to date, you respect it and you leave. Also, please don't be passive aggressive so they chase you. So one tactic that especially anxious attachers will do is they'll withdraw so that the other person thinks something is up and they'll chase. Don't do that. That's not going to make you end up in a long-term relationship. It might feel rewarding momentarily when they do come back and chase you, but you're going to end up in the same place. So please take it from me. Don't be passive aggressive. Don't make them chase you. Just walk away. And I want to remind you that you deserve consistency, you deserve openness, you deserve directness from the other person. And you've got to show up as that too. So if you want consistency, openness, and directness, you have to be those things as well. And again, I know you can do it. I know you have it in you. It's scary. It's vulnerable. It feels awkward sometimes, but it's worth it. So you got this. I'm going to answer a few questions that I got about situationships. The first one is, how long is too long to be dating someone without commitment? It depends on how often you're seeing them and how quickly you're getting to know each other. It also depends on what you want. So there's no real rule for this. For me personally, 2 to 3 months, right? Because I know for me, if I'm in my dating phase, I was able to see someone like 1 to 2 times a week. So by the 2 month mark, I've probably seen them 10 to 12 times. And should be enough time to know where this is heading. And when we say commitment, we do not mean marriage. Like, we do not mean for life. We just mean commitment to the next stage, which is like, okay, we're going to see each other exclusively in monogamous situations. We're going to continue to get to know each other. We're going to integrate each other into our lives, all that stuff. Like, we're going to be in a relationship, not like commitment to marriage. So just to want to clarify on that. Should you keep a situationship while dating others for something serious? I say no. This will only cause you more anxiety and stress, and it sucks up your time and energy that you could be putting towards dating people who actually want to be in a relationship. So I don't think that you should entertain a situationship just because you are bored and want to talk to someone. Like, put that energy towards dating instead. What if I'm comfortable with how it is not labeled? Can I just roll with it until there's a change? I mean, yeah, I don't think that is the best way. I wouldn't say that's dating intentionally. I think it's really important to reflect on what you want and see if what you're doing aligns with that. I think there are a lot of different ways to have relationships, and you don't have to have a monogamous, committed relationship. I'm totally pro open relationships and ethical non-monogamy, polyamory, all that stuff. So just make sure that you are communicating with whoever you're dating so that you're on the same page, no matter what it is that you want. No labels. That's my advice. This one came up a lot. How do I detach from a situationship? So like I said earlier, situationships are painful. They do feel like a breakup. Sometimes they hurt even more than a breakup because the relationship is just getting started. It hasn't even had time to run its course. And I think that's why they hurt sometimes more than breakups out of relationships, because you're ending it when you're maybe in the honeymoon phase. And so it feels a lot worse than ending it when you are in that stable love phase. That's one thing. So I would say treat it like a breakup. Like, you do have to go through that healing process the same way you would if it was a long relationship, and to do no contact, unfollow them on social media, don't interact with them anywhere. Try to block them on the apps if you're back on the apps. Get them out of your life, and Also go to therapy if you can afford it. Do all the things that one would typically do when they're healing from a breakup. That's my advice for detaching. How to transition from a situationship to a relationship. This is all about communication. So you've got to be direct about what you want. You've got to be direct about like the timing of what you want and what a relationship looks like to you, all that stuff, and see if you're on the same page. There is no other way to do it. Like you can't, there's no shortcut or way around the conversation. So have the conversation in person, preferably. Do not do it over text. 2 more. How to avoid situationships without being pushy. So I want to reframe being pushy. Let's stop worrying about being pushy. Let's focus on being direct, upfront, and honest. Knowing what you want and saying that isn't pushy. It's attractive. It puts you on a different level, a level that people want to be on, right? Like think about the most direct person you know. Think about the person in your life who knows what they want and just says it and goes after it. That's a great person to be around. That's the kind of person a lot of people want to be. So stop worrying about being pushy. Saying what you want isn't pushy. It is just communicating. It's being a good communicator. No, you can't force someone to want what you want. You can't force someone to be on the same page as you. You have to listen and respect how they respond. But saying what you want isn't pushy. And the last question is how to stay strong when they come back. And sometimes they do come back, that's for sure. I think this is where blocking and keeping up with no contact is helpful. But when they come back, if they come back, don't take the bait. Remember how they hurt you. Remember that they weren't ready. Can people change? Yes. If you want to entertain a conversation about it, you can, but make sure you do it in person. And make sure, again, you're very clear about what you want. So I don't think it's wrong to want to, like, if someone comes back after a year, it's totally possible they've had some time to like think about it. Maybe they want something different. Like people can change on their own if they want to. So I think it's okay to open up the conversation. Just try to do it in a mature way, preferably in public where, you're not going to hook up, and preferably not with alcohol involved. Like be as clear and level-headed as you can in that conversation. I hope this helps. Okay. So I want to get into some personal updates. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I'm going to do some personal updates, just kind of share what is going on in my life. So the biggest thing, honestly, is the wedding. Yeah, the wedding is 4 months away, which it feels like it's like really coming up. Like we have the summer and then it's the wedding. We're having, if you are new to this and you didn't even know I'm having a wedding, like we got engaged in January and our wedding's in September. We are doing a very different kind of wedding where we're doing a small ceremony and then a reception the next day. And I honestly don't know how people, like brides and grooms and families, do the entire day, like ceremony and then party. I personally cannot do that. So we are splitting it up over 2 days. We're done planning the big stuff like catering, ceremony photographers, my dress. And I'm learning that even though we are doing a small wedding, like we are having probably less than 50 people there, it's still pretty expensive. Like it is way more expensive than I thought it would be. I thought we are using alternative venues. Like our ceremony is going to be in a park and our party is at a bar. So yeah, but still super expensive. We got our honeymoon booked. We are using a travel agent for this. My first time using a travel agent. We are going to Greece and I'm very excited. We're visiting Athens, Paros, and Santorini. And it's nice, like having the travel agent just do it all has been really great. It's like, oh, we're going to go right after our wedding. So it's like, we don't even have to worry about it. It's just completely booked. We can just get on a plane and go. And I love that. I'm so happy we are doing that. Johnny is a great wedding planning buddy. Like I'm so glad we are planning this together. He is just on top of everything that he has to do. Like I don't ever have to nag him. I don't have to ask him twice. Like I've heard nightmare horror stories of grooms just like dragging their feet and just not being into it, but he's been really into it and very on top of things. So planning has been a breeze. And yeah, I think this is a great exercise for couples planning a wedding. This is definitely putting our relationship to the test in some ways. Like there are some things that I care more about than him, and we've definitely had to deal with that. And it's like, okay, cool. Like this is new, this is different, and it has been challenging at times, but not because he's dragging his feet, just because we have different priorities for certain things. And that's, it can't all be perfect. Another thing I wanted to share is that it's my 1-year anniversary of selling my company. So I've been doing a lot of reflecting on how this time last year I was so ready for a change and pretty miserable. And now I'm just loving everything I'm doing. Like, seriously, I do not have stress right now. I don't have anxiety right now. And I think it's so important to acknowledge the times when things are good, because when shit hits the fan, and it will, right? You can have the good, you can't have the good without the bad without the good. So we forget what this feels like. So I'm really trying to like milk everything I can out of this season of my life where I just feel very at peace, because I know this isn't going to last, forever. So I hope that this is inspiring you to do the same, right? To really acknowledge the times when you're like, I'm good, I'm feeling good, everything's okay, I'm not really worried about anything. And I also realize how lucky I am to have this season of my life. Like, I'm acknowledging it. I'm so lucky. So yeah, I hope that inspires you to also do the same. Also, May is my birthday month. I'm turning 32, and next week I'll share a special birthday episode. It's more of like a Q&A, and I'm really excited for my birthday this year. I'm going to the Grand Canyon, Vegas, and Sedona. I personally love Vegas. I don't gamble, I don't really party, I don't go out clubbing, but I love Vegas so much. I think the people watching is prime. And the food is amazing. I also love the hot weather, like it's hot and dry. I haven't been to Sedona or the Grand Canyon in a while, and Johnny's never been. So I'm really excited to tour both of those places with him. And kind of, it's just one of my favorite parts of the country. I love the Southwest, and I think this is like the perfect birthday trip. I also love a road trip, so it's gonna be great. And the last thing I wanted to share is that I'm starting to think that relationship books are not good for me. I've been reading a bunch at the same time, just like different relationship books. I'm most recently reading Hold Me Tight by Sue Johnson, which is a great book and a really important relationship book. But I realized that it's giving me anxiety because if Johnny and I have a conversation that doesn't perfectly align with the way that conversations do in the book, like these examples of how couples should talk to each other, I start freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, we're doomed. We're going to do this wrong. We're doing it wrong. Like, oh my God, this is not like how the book says. And I just don't think it's healthy for me. Like, I mean, really, just because we don't do it by the book, doesn't mean that we're doing it wrong or that we're doomed. Like, I'm starting to realize that we can have our own way of moving through conflict that works for us. It doesn't have to be this like step-by-step recipe for moving through conflict with your partner from these books. So I'm going to take a break from relationship books because I feel like Johnny and I are good at handling conflict for now. And like, we talk about our communication. We don't just communicate, like we actually debrief on our fights and like how they how they kind of play out and what we can do better and how we can both show up better for each other. So it's like, and we repair really well. So as long as we're doing that, like, I'm starting to realize like we don't constantly need to work on it. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to get the job done, which it does. So I thought I'd share that because I just want to share, like, not everything. It might seem like I have it all together in relationships and I like know what I'm doing and I'm doing it by the book, but I'm not. And I hope that you appreciate the realness because I know I do. I want to thank you for listening and watching. Thanks for trusting me. I hope I helped you understand situationships more so you can avoid them when you start to see the signs. Don't forget that you're doing great. I'd love it if you share this episode with someone who's navigating dating and might need a little confidence boost or some tough love. If any of these episodes have helped you in your journey, you can help me by leaving a stunning review on Apple or giving Dating Intentionally 5 stars on Spotify. I'd really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.